What is the future of B2B content marketing and lead generation? Well, that's the question we asked of our panelist, led by Alex Teixeira, head of partnerships at Convetit. Hello, Alex.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, theme number 4, how are marketing teams producing content today, and how are they measured? Why did you guys decide to tackle this question?
Well, before we talked about how important it was to engage authentically with your market, and that seemed to be important. So we wanted to dive into the approaches and how are teams measured?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know that you had a very active panel with a lot of bright ideas, but 3 I know were especially active and stood out. Tell us about your 3 experts.
3 really stood out. So Andrea, she's more of a creative strategist, has been in marketing for quite some time. Gary, he's a marketing consultant and always has fresh ideas. And then Glenn, he's a technology executive, and it's always good to have his perspective.
Now, in your executive summary, you have 4 sort of macro points, which we're going to dive into, but go over the big ones here.
So as mentioned before, we asked 2 primary questions. One, what are the various approaches to producing content? And then secondly, exploring how teams are measured. So what were the important KPIs? So with approaches, time being the most precious asset, or content producers just need to get straight to the point to make it super clear to those consuming content. Secondly was around KPIs, and there's quite a lot to unpack there, from running A/B campaigns to SEO and SEM strategies. Formats was key because content is evolving in how new content formats are being consumed and created. And then lastly, looking at creative agencies versus in-house and the blend of them both as we're seeing the rise of gig economy.
Well, and you started off talking about time, how precious it is, so content needs to get to the point, and that's the point you're making here in key point number 1.
Exactly. So Glenn pointed out that consumers want alignment with their industry, business outcomes, and validated results. What they don't want to do is read another 16-page white paper. So making sure that the key takeaways are super clear to those consuming the content is very important, and that it aligns to relevant industries that you're targeting. The second point was around having user communities, and being in touch directly with your market is a great way to get, direct feedback, whether it be a technical or market-related question. And that's something we try to do here at Convetit as well.
Now, in key point number 2, there is a lot to unpack here. You've got A/B testing, you've got SEO, you've got paid search. What were your thoughts on these?
So there's a lot to unpack around KPIs. People were pretty passionate about talking about it. One, David mentioned that, it's important to measure SEO, that the content from SEO can be scored similarly as to how ads are scored internally. So the way to measure effectiveness. The second one was made by Gary, and from the KPIs, you could focus on certain category growth. If you're doing a lot of business in healthcare or in the industrial space, it could be a way to, expand within categories themselves, as different KPIs will yield, certain outcomes.
So you sort of broke down KPI 1 and then KPI 2, 2 being dealing with how to acquire new audiences with content.
So there's a lot to do around social sharing. Thomas mentioned having microsites that may link, call it content or thought leadership, and have that, tied into some of the product services that companies do sell. He also mentioned an interesting thing around LinkedIn groups, using that as a way to drive, your KPI activities.
Now, earlier you talked about all the different formats that are available. What did you guys talk about there?
Yeah, formats are always evolving. It's always good to tell a compelling, creative type of story. So Andrea here, she highlights a few examples from HP to MailChimp, and then also highlights that B2B buyers, 90+% of the time, are conducting research online before making a purchase. And people are using their phones increasingly to do exactly this. So having a mobile friendly is important. And then she highlights the importance of video content as being the increasing way in which B2B buyers are engaging and learning about certain issues.
Now, obviously, some of this content is coming back to if you want to keep people's attention, it has to be compelling, it has to be interesting, and that is going to come back to the creative source. So explain this idea of outsourcing your creative versus keeping it in-house, and what can we learn from those two approaches?
Right. So, the bulk of the panel, nearly everybody, they're practitioners, they're marketers, dealing with, some of them represent the creative side, others on the in-house side, but they've had experience on really both sides. So what's really interesting about the creative is that they're bringing fresh ideas to in-house teams. But it's also really important to make that creative feel a part of the team and the overall mission so that, their ideas are, of course, implemented. And what we're also seeing is the rise of freelancers, and they're being critical assets of teams today. So whether it be a creative agency or freelancer, all these ring true.
Well, Alex, this is really just a fantastic conversation, and the panel sounds like they were really amped up. Tell us some of the people that served on this panel.
It's really great to get a diverse range of perspectives in marketing, and that's exactly what we have here. We have marketers who have been marketers for, decades. We have marketing executives, those representing PR and creative agencies, even the freelancers themselves. So really a range of diverse perspectives and really fantastic group of contributors here.
Great. Well, good job moderating and facilitating this panel. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Gene.
Alex Teixeira is in charge of relationships at Convetit, and he did a great job exploring these new content ideas with us, and we look forward to talking to you again, Alex.
Thank you, Gene.